Welcome back, basketball fans, sports enthusiasts, and everyone tuning in from across the globe to our channel. You already know what time it is, but today is not just any regular update. Today, we are staring down the barrel of one of the most highly anticipated, fiercely debated, and deeply analyzed storylines in the landscape of international basketball. The title of today's episode says it all. Game Day. GILAS Philippines and the New Zealand TALLBLACKS going up against the Australian Boomers, and a headline that is sending absolute shockwaves through the basketball community. Someone is going to pass Kai Sotto. Now, before you jump in the comment section, before you start typing out your passionate defenses or your fiery hot takes, I need you to sit back, lock in, and truly listen to the magnitude of what we are about to unpack today. We are not just talking about a single game. We are talking about the shifting tectonic plates of FIBA Asia, the evolution of the international big man, the crushing weight of national expectations, and the brutal, unforgiving reality of the 2027 FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers. We are looking at a scenario that forces us to question everything we thought we knew about the future of Philippine basketball, the ceiling of Oceania's powerhouses, and the trajectory of a 7'3" prodigy who has carried the hopes of over 100 million people on his shoulders. To understand the sheer gravity of the statement that someone is going to pass Kai Sotto, we have to rewind and look at the battlefield that was the February and March 2026 FIBA window. Picture the Mall of Asia Arena. The crowd is deafening. The stakes are sky high, and GILAS Philippines is stepping onto their home floor to defend their turf. But there's a glaring, massive 7'3" void in the middle of the paint. Kai Sotto is not in uniform. He is in Japan, dominating with the Kashiga Alphas in the B League, joining the elite 1,000-point club, putting up stellar numbers, and preserving his body for a potential NBA call-up. And while everyone roots for that NBA dream, his absence on the national team stage exposed a soft, vulnerable underbelly in the GILAS armor. Without Sotto, the geometry of the basketball court fundamentally changes. Kai is not just a tall player. He is a structural deterrent. He bends defensive coverages, he discourages baseline drives, he cleans up perimeter mistakes on the backline, and he forces opposing coaches to tear up their standard offensive playbooks. So, what happened when the TALLBLACKS and the Boomers came to town and realized the paint was unguarded by the Philippine Tower? It was a reality check of epic proportions. The New Zealand TALLBLACKS dragged GILAS into a grueling, physical, grinded-out affair, escaping with narrow 69-66 victory. It was a heartbreaker, a game where the gritty Filipino spirit was on full display, but the sheer size and system continuity of the Kiwis proved just a fraction too much to overcome. But if the New Zealand game was a heartbreak, the matchup against the Australian Boomers was a full-blown exposé. Australia did not just beat GILAS, they dismantled them, walking away with a 93-66 drubbing that left fans and analysts alike searching for answers. The Boomers dominated the glass, out-rebounding GILAS 50-38 and converting those offensive boards into a back-breaking 29-13 advantage in second-chance points. That is not just about hustle, ladies and gentlemen. That is about structural dominance. That is about the sheer physical imposing will of a team that knows exactly where their advantages lie and executes them with ruthless efficiency. Elijah Pepper caught fire, draining 5 three-pointers en route to 28 points. Tanner Krebs added 4 more triples. They spaced the floor, moved the ball, and dared the undersized GILAS defense to stop them. And in the middle of this masterclass from Oceania, a burning question emerged from the ashes of the second window. Who is stepping up? If Kai Sotto is focusing on his professional career abroad, if he is protecting his health for the ultimate NBA leap, the national team cannot afford to wait in limbo. The flag on the chest requires immediate answers. This brings us to the explosive premise of our broadcast today. Someone is going to pass Kai Sotto. Does this mean another rising star is about to eclipse his impact on the international stage? Are we looking at a young Filipino big man like A.J. Edu, when fully healthy, or the rebounding machine Quentin Miller-Brown, stepping into that massive void and proving that they can be the new defensive anchors for Coach Tim Cone? Or does this headline imply something far more dangerous for GILAS? That the big men from Australia and New Zealand are evolving at such a rapid pace that they are systematically passing Sotto's archetype in the modern FIBA landscape? This is the ultimate hook, the storyline that demands our absolute attention. We are witnessing a transition period in Asian basketball. The traditional reliance on a singular towering savior is being challenged by the speed, spacing, and multi-positional versatility of teams like the Boomers and the TALLBLACKS. Justin Brownlee, as phenomenal as he is, cannot be asked to bail the team out on every single possession while facing double and triple teams. Opposing international scouting reports are ruthless. They know the Philippines lacks a consistent, lights-out, three-point sniper to punish collapsed defenses. They dare GILAS to beat them from the perimeter, and when the shots do not fall, the lack of an interior safety net like Kai Sotto turns into a glaring, fatal flaw. So, as we set the stage for this immense deep dive, ask yourself this. What makes a franchise player in international basketball today? Is it raw height, or is it adaptability? When a talent like Kai Sotto is sidelined, it creates a vacuum. And in the world of highly competitive sports, vacuums are always filled. Someone is preparing to take that mantle. Someone is grinding in the shadows, ready to out-rebound, out-hustle, and outperform expectations. Whether it's a fellow countryman stepping into the spotlight or a rival from the Boomers or TALLBLACKS using this window to elevate their own draft stock and international prestige, the hierarchy of basketball giants in the Asia-Pacific region is shifting right before our very eyes. Grab your notebooks, settle in, and get ready, because we are about to break down every single angle, every single matchup, and every single implication of this massive shift in the basketball world. Let us transition into the core of the matter, peeling back the layers of this fascinating dynamic. To truly grasp why the concept of someone passing Kai Sotto is so controversial and compelling, we must first analyze the unique ecosystem of FIBA Asia basketball since the integration of Australia and New Zealand. For decades, the Asian basketball landscape was defined by completely different parameters. Teams relied on contrasting styles, the run-and-gun speed of South Korea, the towering, methodical giant of China, the physical, bruising play of Iran, and the chaotic, heart-driven, isolation-heavy flair of the Philippines. But when FIBA merged Oceania into the Asian qualifiers, the entire paradigm was violently flipped upside down. Australia and New Zealand did not just bring height. They brought an entirely new basketball philosophy. They brought the European-style ball movement combined with immense physical strength and a pipeline of talent that stretches directly into the NBA and top-tier European leagues. The Australian Boomers, even when fielding their secondary squads or NBL-heavy rosters, play with a level of system continuity that takes years to build. They do not rely on a single hero. They rely on spacing, brutal screens, relentless rebounding, and surgical shooting. The New Zealand TALLBLACKS, famously known for their awe-inspiring haka before tip-off, play with a similar ethos. They're incredibly physical, they never quit, and as Jordan Natai noted recently, they respect the grit of the Filipinos, but they also know how to exploit mismatches. Now, place Kai Sotto into this turbulent environment. At 7'3", Kai was heralded as the ultimate equalizer for Philippines. For years, the rallying cry for GILAS Pilipinas was, "We lack size." We had the fastest guards, we had the most passionate players, but when it came down to a half-court set against a 6'11" Australian center, heart and passion could only get you so far. Kai Sotto was supposed to be the bridge over that physical gap. And to his immense credit, when he is on the floor, he absolutely is. His presence alone alters the trajectory of the game. We saw an historic upset against New Zealand at the Paze venue back in 2024 during the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers, where Kai was a central hero in that 93-89 thriller. He was the anchor. He was the proof that the Philippines could finally look Oceania in the eye and not blink. But basketball is a game of availability, as much as it is a game of ability. Kai's commitment to his professional growth in Japan and his careful management of his body for an NBA push means he cannot be present for every single FIBA window. This is the crux of the issue. If the ultimate equalizer is not on the floor, who assumes the burden? This is where the headline, "Someone has passed Kai Sotto," takes on multiple, fascinating meanings. First, let us look at it from an internal perspective within the Philippine roster. The pressure on the remaining big men is monumental. Take Quinton Milora-Brown, for example. Here's a 6'10" player, stepping into the massive shoes left by Sotto, tasked with the near-impossible job of battling the towering front lines of New Zealand and Australia. Milora-Brown is a different type of player than Sotto. He does not have the 7'3" reach, but he brings a different kind of physicality. He brings a willingness to engage in the gritty, unglamorous warfare of boxing out, fighting for loose balls, and setting bone-jarring screens. When Quinton steps onto the court, he is fully aware that he cannot replicate Kai's rim protection, but he can provide a different kind of anchor. Is Milora-Brown going to pass Sotto in terms of raw talent? Unlikely. But could he pass him in terms of sheer reliability and foundational importance during these grueling qualifying windows? That is a debate worth having. Then you have to consider the incredible presence of June Mar Fajardo, the multi-time PBA MVP. Fajardo is a legend, a dominant force domestically. But international scouting has caught up to his game. Opposing teams know how to pull him out of the paint, forcing him to defend in space, which neutralizes his elite post-up abilities. Without Sotto play alongside him in a twin tower setup, a setup that actually worked beautifully against New Zealand in the past. Fajardo is left on an island against highly mobile, stretch bigs from Oceania. Let us pivot and look at the headline from the perspective of the opposition. Are the rising stars of the Boomers and the Tall Blacks passing Kai Sotto in the regional hierarchy? Let's talk about the Australian frontcourt and their emerging talents. The Boomers have a conveyor belt of big men who are not just tall, but incredibly skilled on the perimeter. They are teaching their 6'10" and 6'11" players to shoot the three, to put the ball on the floor, and to defend multiple positions. When Australia destroyed GILAS 93-66, it wasn't just because they were taller. It was because their bigs could stretch the floor, pulling the Philippine defense apart at the seams. This allowed guards like Elijah Pepper to have a field day on the perimeter. If Kai Sotto is a traditional, albeit highly skilled, drop-coverage center, the modern Oceania big man is evolving into a positionless nightmare. In that sense, the system of developing big men in Australia and New Zealand might be passing the traditional center archetype that Sotto represents. Furthermore, we have to analyze the tactical adjustments made by Coach Tim Cohn. Cohn is an absolute mastermind, a disciple of the triangle offense, and a coach who values defensive discipline above all else. But even a mastermind cannot invent height out of thin air. In the absence of Sotto, Cohn has had to rely heavily on versatility. He has played Justin Brownlee at the 4, pushed Dwight Ramos into bigger defensive assignments, and asked his guard to crash the defensive glass with reckless abandon. This is where the Tall Blacks themselves noted a shift. Jordan Nadai publicly stated that GILAS is shedding the undersized label. They are realizing that if they do not have a 7'3" center, they need 6'4" to 6'6" players across the board who can switch, fight, and claw for every inch of hardwood. But is this sustainable? Can you beat a well-oiled machine like the Australian Boomers with just grit and versatility? The 27-point blowout suggests that the answer is no. You need top-tier talent, and you need your best players available. Justin Brownlee is phenomenal. He is the heart and soul of the GILAS offense. He leads the team in efficiency, scoring, and assists. But let us be brutally honest. Brownlee is immortal. He is facing double and triple teams every time he touches the basketball. Without Sotto diving to the rim to keep the defense honest, opponents simply pack the paint and dare the Filipino guards to shoot. And unfortunately, in the recent window, the shooting was not there. Players like C.J. Perez, Dwight Ramos, and Juan Gomez de Leon struggled to find consistent rhythm from beyond the arc. This brings us to the psychological aspect of passing someone. Kai Sotto is a cultural icon in the Philippines. Every move he makes is scrutinized, celebrated, or heavily debated. When he plays well in the B League, the nation cheers. When he misses a FIBA window, the nation worries. But this hyper-focus on one player can sometimes overshadow the development of the collective. If someone is going to pass Kai Sotto, whether it is a teammate stepping up to become the new indispensable piece of the puzzle, or an opponent cementing their dominance over the region, it forces a necessary reckoning within Philippine basketball. It forces a realization that the national team cannot be a one-man show, nor can be entirely dependent on the availability of a single giant. We must also look at the broader implications for the 2027 FIBA World Cup. The Asian qualifiers are a marathon, not a sprint. The losses to New Zealand and Australia in the second window are setbacks, yes, But they are not the end of the road. GILAS sits at a 2-2 record, with crucial windows still ahead, particularly the upcoming matches in July. But the blueprint on how to beat GILAS has been broadcasted to the entire world. Neutralize Brownlee, dominate the glass, and exploit the lack of interior presence. If Kai Sotto returns in July, as Coach Cohn hopes, the dynamic changes instantly. But what if he doesn't? What if an NBA Summer League invite or training camp conflicts with the FIBA schedule? This is where the true test of Philippine basketball lies. The system must outlast the individual. The grassroots programs, the PBA, the collegiate leagues, they must produce players who can step into the breach. If another player is going to pass Kai Sotto in terms of national importance, it will require a Herculean effort. It will require a big man who not only has the physical tools, but the unrelenting dedication to master the international game. It requires someone who can read the fluid, high IQ offense of the Boomers and not get lost in the rotations. It requires someone who can absorb the physical punishment of the TALLBLACKS without backing down. As we dissect this game day scenario, GILAS and TALLBLACKS versus Boomers, we are not just analyzing box scores. We are watching the evolution of a sport. We are watching how different cultures approach the same game. The Australian approach is clinical, efficient, and ruthless. The New Zealand approach is passionate, physical, and deeply rooted in heritage. The Philippine approach is emotional, highly skilled, but currently searching for its structural identity in the absence of its biggest star. When you hear that someone is going to pass Kai Sotto, do not view it as a slight against him. View it as the natural, inevitable progression of competitive sports. Records are meant to be broken. Roles are meant to be challenged. Mantles are meant to be passed. The beauty of basketball is that the court does not care about your reputation. It only cares about what you can produce when the shot clock is winding down and the lights are blinding. The next chapter of the saga is waiting to be written, and the ink is being drawn from the sweat and tears of the players who are currently fighting for their lives in these qualifiers. As we wrap up this massive, comprehensive deep dive into the state of GILAS Pilipinas, the imposing threat of the TALLBLACKS and the Boomers, and the lingering shadow of Kai Sotto's absence, we are left with a landscape full of both anxiety and immense potential. The reality of international basketball is harsh. There are no excuses accepted on the court. You either have the personnel to execute the game plan, or you get exposed by teams that do. The recent window proved that heart and pride, while a central component of the Filipino basketball identity, are simply not enough to overcome strategic and structural deficits against top-tier global powerhouses. The headline we explored today, that someone is going to pass Kai Sotto, serves as a wake-up call. It is a reminder that the national program must be bigger than any single individual, no matter how physically imposing or talented they may be. Whether Sotto returns to anchor the paint in the upcoming July window, or whether players like Quentin Miller-Brown, AJ Edu, or an unexpected rising star must permanently step into the void, GILAS Pilipinas is at a critical crossroads. They must find a way to replicate the spacing, the ball movement, and the sheer physicality of Oceania teams if they want to secure their spot and make noise in the 2027 FIBA World Cup. For the Australian Boomers and the New Zealand TALLBLACKS, the mission remains the same: sustained dominance. They have laid down the gauntlet, showing the rest of Asia what the gold standard of modern basketball looks like. Their ability to seamlessly integrate new talent while maintaining a terrifying level of systemic execution is something every basketball federation should be studying relentlessly. Basketball is a living, breathing entity, constantly evolving, constantly demanding more from those who dare to play it at the highest level. We will be right here, breaking down every rotation, every roster change, and every dramatic twist as the road to the World Cup continues.